So a little bit about the programs that we work with. We actually offer 10 graduate level programs in business at the Kogod School. We have a full-time MBA program and also a professional part-time MBA program. Specialty masters in the areas of accounting, finance, real estate, sustainability management, and taxation. And then we also offer, in conjunction with our full-time program, several dual degree options, an MA, MBA with our School of International Service, and then also 2 dual degree programs with our Washington College of Law. Now, what's particularly interesting to note is that for the recruitment admissions to all 10 degree programs, a staff of 4, including myself, is responsible for that. So just to kind of give you a sense of scope, being able to use Connect and apply yourself, and really especially the Connect end of it, helps us to do a lot more with a very small size staff. So what do we mean by them? I think it's really important in being able to design customized communications to be clear on who it is that your audience is and who it is, in fact, your sub-audiences are, to be able to design the communications and the corresponding messages to reach those audiences. So first and foremost are the prospects. And for us, we define these individuals as those who have not submitted an application but are very interested in learning more. So they're the early individuals that are getting prepared to perhaps move through your specific application process. And I think we'll talk a little bit about kind of what the types of messages are that we think are important to share with them. Our next groups are the applicants, and these are the individuals that are either they've either started an application or they've submitted an application, and it's really about helping them to move through that particular process and helping to further their interest and ultimately with ideally gaining admission for these particular students. And then admits perhaps are often our favorite group of students. These are the individuals for which we've granted admission. They're eager to make an enrollment decision, and so the types of things that you want to share with them, while there may be some similarities with the other 2 audiences, are perhaps also very different. So in terms of delivering what's actually important to it, a lot of that actually varies based off of the stage that the particular individual is in. So if they're prospects, a lot of time the information is very information focused, it's very factually based, it's specific to offerings and kind of the baseline details that they're really interested in terms of being able to want to learn more and to consider applying for admission to your particular program. Applicants, we find that the experience with them is, for the most part, very process-oriented. They've already made the decision to apply to your institution, so the big piece in terms of working with applicants is helping them to receive in messages that will help them move through the process in a more efficient fashion. And admits, the focus and emphasis with that particular audience is very value affirming. You want to help them to decide and to select your school in terms of where it is that they want to pursue their studies. So the messages that are geared for admits are very much about value affirmation and providing decision-making support. And so as it pertains to the Hobsons products, though, there's a fair amount of coordination that needs to be done to make certain that you make full use of the product to support the messaging and the delivery of the messages that you want to make to these particular audiences. So as we go through this presentation, we'll talk about customizing the VIP page, being able to use segmented email messages, and I'll show you some examples of what that looks like. And then also being able to synchronize both the VIP page and the email messages to be consistent with the applicant and how they progress through the admissions process. I think a really important part to keep in mind is that it starts with the right details. And so being able to make it about them and really the focus on the particular applicant and the individual that's going through this process is a function of a couple of things. First and foremost is being timely in terms of the follow-up and the information. And that's from when they first express interest to following up whether or not you received their transcripts to, I've been admitted, I really want to be in your program, but I need to speak to financial aid. So I think timeliness is a really important factor. And a lot of the features that are in Connect, automated templates, the ability to communicate with larger groups at the same time, it really helps to make it such that you can maintain communication with them in a very efficient manner. The other piece of it is coding information accurately. And so, again, in order to make full use of the Connect module in particular, a lot of the filters and the things that help drive who you send these messages to is a function of the data that you input into the system. So we'll talk a little bit about making certain that you code your information accurately, because the better you are in terms of doing that when you first get set up, the easier it will be to make good use of the data in terms of how you use the system. So prospects, just really briefly, I thought I would touch on perhaps some of the key things that they want to know, as well as how you can use the VIP pages and the email messages to deliver messages to them. Again, these individuals are very much fact-finding oriented. They're really curious about the offerings. They want to know about value proposition, but perhaps value proposition to the extent that they want to apply, they want to submit an application. It's perhaps different from the value proposition that you are sharing with your students as they're making their final enrollment decision, but nonetheless, you want to give them a sense of kind of why your particular institution, and then focus on next steps. So if they are interested in applying for admission, what are the things that they need to do to be able to further express their interest and submit an application? So some ways to be able to do that. The VIP page is one of the early points that we rely on to be able to start to customize that experience for prospects as they go through the application process. Later in the session, I'll actually show you a screenshot of our VIP page so you can see what I'm referring to. But from the very first instance where they express interest in the program, we start to personalize their experience and the interface that they have with our admissions office and process. And that also then extends to customized email messages once they submit information through our interest form. And then in addition to some of the customized messages, we do make certain that we provide them with kind of stage relevant follow-up. So if they're at this particular phase in the process, oftentimes it's about providing them with information to attend campus events, information sessions. Again, we're looking to provide them with the details that are relevant to where they are in the actual application process. This, of course, looks a little bit different for applicants. So now that someone has made a decision to apply for admission, the things that they're most interested in talking about and staying focused on are different from those of what they were focusing on during the prospect phase. So for the most part, we oftentimes see them having some questions about requirements. What's needed for admission? Have you received my transcripts? Are my standardized scores on record? Things like that are very process-oriented are really the core of, I think, communications with applicants. Timeline, I think we're all familiar with when is my application going to be ready for review? When is my final decision going to be released? And so again, you can see that a lot of the communication with this particular group is specific to process and kind of ushering them through the admissions process. Of course, there are other considerations that are top of mind for these particular individuals, access to financial aid and questions they might have about that. International applicants are often curious to know if there are additional requirements that they need to be aware of. And then just generally speaking, if anyone's going to be relocating, oftentimes they want to have access to that information to begin preparing, especially if they're interested in your program. So again, in terms of how we tell them, again, we leverage the VIP page. Within ours, we actually build in an application checklist. So as students are in this particular phase, as we make updates and to apply yourself to say that yes, your transcript is received, yes, your standardized test score is on file, yes, all of these components are starting to be complete, they can see that in their VIP page. With our email messages, we use them as a way to basically provide them with reminders in terms of documents that they need to submit, the timeline in terms of maintaining that open degree of communication, which for us then helps to reduce the amount of phone calls and email inquiries that come in about what's going on with my application. So from that standpoint, it also helps us to improve the process from our end in terms of ways that we interact and engage with candidates. And then the last bit is about the customized content that shows up on the VIP page. As students fill out the interest forms online, though, what happens is that the content blocks that appear on their VIP page start to populate based off of the content that they expressed interest in their form. So again, you can begin to see kind of the ways where it's a highly dynamic experience and one that's very much driven by the user and the applicant in particular. And then lastly, a little bit about our admits. I think that once you make the decision to admit the student, the first question that comes to mind is, okay, now what? What do I have access to? How can I make this decision? What are the types of things that will help me to make my decision? And why ultimately should my decision be yes? These are really kind of the key things that are top of mind for students that have been admitted to programs. And so again, being able to use the VIP page, the email messages to respond to these individuals that are in a different stage of the application process or the admissions process is important. So with our VIP page, once they move to being admitted students, though, the entire content refreshes. The application checklist goes away, new information gets posted about connecting with students, alumni, joining our admitted student community. They receive a series of welcome messages from different individuals on staff and within the academic community. So it's a great way, I think, to help kind of use the tools that are offered through Hobsons to be able to support your students as they go through these different stages of process. And so here you can see the actual pathway that students take. In just a moment, I'm going to highlight a particular example from our marketing campaign that we did in the fall semester, one of the different ways that we help to kind of feed the pipeline, if you will. So this progression, we're going to take a look at some particular examples, beginning with the microsite, the import into Hobsons, into the CRM, taking a closer look at the emails and showing you some particular examples of that, as well as our VIP page. And then the Ning network is actually a follow-up to the customized experience that students have as they're going through the application process. It's a particular platform called Ning, so we use it for our students that are admitted, and it's basically an online community to help them to continue to have this customized experience, but to begin preparing them for their transition into their academic programs in the fall. So I'll give you a sense of kind of what that looks like, but that is kind of outside of the scope of the CRM and the Hobsons suite. So this last academic year, we wanted to highlight a couple of different approaches to how we import students into the CRM in particular. There are a whole number of different ways in terms of how students actually enter the database. Certainly pay-per-click ads, the American University websites, our participation in events and being able to upload prospect information into the system. But in this particular presentation, we're going to highlight our use of the microsite campaign. So we partnered with a third-party organization in the fall semester to design and deliver a microsite campaign. And so we did prospective student outreach, and the students were redirected to a microsite. I'll show you what that microsite looks like, but we did essentially 3 different iterations of this microsite, one that emphasized admission to all of our graduate degree programs, the second that highlighted our redesigned professional MBA program, and the third that was emphasizing our new degree program in sustainability management. So once they imported their information through this microsite, we then set up customized import templates to basically capture the data that was coming through this campaign and import it directly to our CRM so it could be integrated with the rest of our processes and communications. So what that required us to do is to do a little bit of additional legwork within the system to make certain that as we were capturing information from this third-party site, we were doing so in a way that we could easily import it into our system and make good use of it, and that it can continue to get caught up in the original communications plans that we have in place already. So a couple of things also that we did in terms of kind of logistical setups. We did set up some new fields, which I'll show you in just a moment. We separated them by campaign, and that goes back to the point on segmentation. Because we had 3 different microsites that we were using, we did make certain to set it up in a way that it was specific to each campaign. And then we also, though, to kind of unify it based off of this particular initiative, we assigned them all with a source code of microsite to be able to know for a fact that these particular prospects, if you will, came from the microsite initiative. And so this here is actually a screenshot of the actual microsite. For some of you that might be a bit further back and not able to see, it's essentially a sort of splash page, if you will, that has some basic information about, in the center, the professional MBA program. So this is the one that was specific to the professional MBA. Across the bottom, you see a number of different links, videos, information about attending events, success stories, tuition and financial aid, and apply now if a student is at a point where they're ready to take that step and move forward. The part on the right there is additional information in terms of the details that we want to capture to import into our system. And so you can see, I want to earn my, and that is specific to the particular program of interest. So in this case, it was specific to the professional MBA. The next piece of it was about their prospect enrollment year. So are they interested in fall 2012, 2013, 2014? What term of interest is someone interested in? Because that, again, adjusts the type of message that they'll receive in follow-up. And then the third piece of it was a custom field that we built that basically said, I'm interested in getting my degree for the following reasons: career enhancement, expanding my network, any one of those particular options. And so once someone entered this information into the microsite, what happens next is that the content gets updated to reflect the user's choices. So now that same microsite that was initially capturing information is updated to reflect the particular applicant, the particular candidate's interest in the professional program. So in the center, that gets updated to provide some additional details about the professional MBA. And then in the last case, she expressed interest in doing the program for career enhancement. So again, we see that the content gets updated based on her particular choice of wanting to pursue a degree for career enhancement.